So good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for attending the Master Talk on edging and tilt. Tilt is what we call it in the snowboard world. I'm Mike Ma. I am honored to be with all of you tonight and to talk a little bit about something I care a lot about, which is edging and tilt. And I'm going to do a little different take as a master class on this, as I see a lot of experience in this room. And then also for those who are watching, I definitely assume if you found this video that there is a fair amount of experience out here as well. So quick check on the thumbs is, can everyone see my presentation that I put up here? All right, excellent. So I wanted to take a little bit of a different take on what I think about edging and tilt. And a couple words come to mind that we're going to return to over and over tonight. Radness, sensation, and recovery. This is something I'm super excited about, and my thought about talking about this fundamental that we share across multiple disciplines around using inclination, angulation to control the amount of edging or tilt that our particular equipment gets. So before I dive too much, I'm since Nick let me know, I was like, hey, who are you other than trainer? I'm Mike Ma. I am an East Coaster. Not only do I normally live in New York, but I am a Vail employee just like you three. My home mountain is Mount Snow in southern Vermont. I serve on both able-bodied snowboard staff here in the East, as well as an adaptive examiner. I had the pleasure of serving one term on the team, and I'm excited to be with you all tonight. And this is something I'm super excited about. So I wanted to take a little bit of a different spin on this and just talk a little bit about some of the things tonight. It's like things I want to leave you all with, and I'm happy to take other things as we go through the chat. But one, edging and tilt is the universal key to radness, and I'll talk a little bit why that means. I'm going to talk about the way to create radness is through this combination, and we're going to talk about as the most important part of making this really, really cool fundamental work. I want to disambiguate some of the things I hear as I travel around, like what the heck's the difference between this fundamental and pressure to the outside ski or moving pressure laterally across the board. Like I think a lot of people get confused around this and understand this, and it's totally understandable. I do, and some lose it a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about it's not just carving. It's not just carving. And everyone thinks about this fundamental. Oh, you mean carving? Sometimes. This is a far more versatile fundamental, and it comes in far more areas than just carving. And lastly, I just want to talk about adaptive radness. And through the lenses of sensation and combinations, you start to see, and maybe I'd like to leave you with a little different of a nuance of understanding this particular fundamental, and maybe even hopefully touching on a larger thing about how we think about teaching adaptive overall and its relation to our able-bodied counterparts. Cool. Harumph? All right. So I'm going to tuck in and say, like, this is why I think it's the raddest fundamental. If you ask anybody, picture a skier, picture a snowboarder, an image like this comes up in your mind. And what do you see? Big bass flash, lots of snow spray, cool angles, looks super awesome. And this is when we get beginners on the hill and they are going skiing and they're going snowboard in their mind, this is what they're going to do. Now, we all know that's not anywhere true for a little bit of time, but this is what's in their mind. And I'd love to us think about this as this is the fundamental we're talking about. And I think we can do a lot for our beginners if we treat it this way, knowing that this is the incoming modality and we can use it to our advantage. So just the words again, I'm just going to put the words up here for people to see. And I'm going to emphasize my thesis on this is right. Controlling edge angles through a combination of inclination, angulation We call it tilt in the snowboard world. It's just more of a remnant of our old board performances, but it's the same thing. Control the board's tilt through a combination of incline. You could actually replace edge and tilt on either side. I do believe it's a potato situation. I want to go through what it means in inclination is moving the body in, angulation is creating angles, and tilting and edging is the performance outcome. The most important word is combination and how we think through it and how we blend these two things together. I also think this fundamental's super unique, and it's the only one that references an external orientation to the slope, right? So understanding inclination, it's related to this. Everything else is sort of very much like where the center of mass is, thinking about, pressure in certain directions but it has an external orientation. I also think the antithesis of radness or maybe the outcome of uncool radness is unsafe. It is one of the ones that I think has a paramount impact to making sure that, well, especially since it's an primarily adaptive audience here, is that our students do not end up more adaptive out of our lessons or riding than not. And managing this fundamental, I think, is paramount to do that.
You're not
I don't
supposed to bring anybody back any more disabled than they went out.
exactly. Um, I also want to leave with this idea: flat ski, flat equipment is squarely in the remit of this fundamental. And that is an important skill that unlocks a whole different parts of the mountain, and it's a precursor to understanding this idea that it's not just about carving. So, it's really about combination. And I like to put a little fun thing here. So if anyone knows, shout to my other Michael Jackson. Inclination is just a visualization of this. Is from the video Smooth Criminal, and on the right is from the video Billie Jean. But this idea of creating angles where you're moving your body in and angles. This is how I think about it. As just a general rule of thumb. Inclination is really good at setting up power through a move, and angles are there for precision. This is a rule of thumb, but understanding if the remit is to think about the mixing of spices, then understanding what you use salt and pepper for are different. And by the way, before anyone watching on the internet comes after me on this, I did put it in italics. This example is purely for fun, illustrative purposes only. It's not to to say that this is a technically. I don't want anyone showing up to a Cert 2 exam or Cert 3 exam and said Mike Ma said this is the example of inclination and put that on. So I just want to go through the combinations are the key, and there is a dad joke in there. So I'm going to show you two moves from this, and I'm really glad that actually for this particular live audience, we have Alpiners, and I'm going to show a move. I'm going to show something, and in the chat you can go through, and I want you to watch both of them, um, and I think I have to exit, see what happens if I click this. And tell me what you see the difference is. Well, first watch one and watch what your theory is how the first rider, which is me, feel free to come at me, creates different inclination and angulation combinations. And are you still seeing? Just gonna loop. And feel free to put in the chat what you may see um, around this. And then I'm going to show you the second one. This is my student who saw me do this, and this is on Instagram, by the way, saw me do this on Instagram and wanted to ride with me at Big Snow, which is our indoor facility here in New Jersey, and did her very best impression of that same move. Do, 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 do. So if you see some of the differences between them, you're going to see in this particular case, you're going to see a blend of, in this particular moment here, and we'll go through it again. It's nice. This is a nice short loop. There's angles created up in an anticipatory movement. There's a very low edge angle. Barb put in that there's a high edge angle, but it's not yet. The high edge angle appears here, where there's a very high edge angle at the apex of the turn. And there's retraction. Again, more angles again to bring the board under me and recover. It's a blending of angles, inclination, back to angles to create recovery. So if we watch this one, here's what I see. See lots of angles. I see zero inclination. Well, I mean, some inclination here. And here's the thing. There's actually inclination here. Let's go through this. There's inclination and angulation, lots of angles. Inclined again, right? Inclined again. You could see there's angles in her hips and her head is angled into the hill, but there's no change in edging or tilt. So this is why the fundamental is so important about using the combination of those to create this outcome of edging and tilt. It's a very fundamental difference between how we look at both of these. So let me go back in. I'll just leave this here. So, and this is how I think about breaking this down. And these are the things that go through my mind. And as I approached this Euro car, and it doesn't really matter. You could do the same thing. I used to Alpine and setting up a big long leg, short leg car, right? Just like you saw. This is John Ballou over here on the right, and over on the left is my friend Dave Hirschberg here on the East Coast. And you could think about the same notion on a big long leg, short leg car. So one, getting into the initiation phase of the turn, can I set up angles just to test if I have grip? And particularly here, at least for me, here in the Ice Coast, sometimes I don't have it. And that first says I don't have it. And my choice at that part is to probably either ramp it back or do a different thing other than I'm not going to do this layout. I may just skid it out. I may revert back to continuing in a traverse, but I am working on the sensation to see if, do I have anything there? Do the early angles and the low edge angle give me any confidence that I'm going to do it? Once I feel like I have it, boom, I can add incline to add power. I'm going to extend. I got grip, and now I'm having to feel the sensation of how far can I go? When am I going to lose either momentum, put myself in a dangerous place, or not have enough rebound to make a recovery? Once I've decided that, which by the way, this is all happening real quick, right? This whole clip is 6 seconds. 1, 2. I mean, that whole turn is a second. And there's probably like 30 decisions I made in there. Okay, how can I recover? How do I use angles to bring it back in? The only way to combine these is through sensation. It's the only computer, ChatGPT hasn't figured this out yet. It's the only computer fast enough to make these decisions real time. And I want to talk about recovery. Recovery is an incredibly important microscope by which you can look at the successful blending of these skills. Feel free to put this in. This is an example. Just based on these two stills, which are incredibly terrible because they're screen grabs off of YouTube, which we're going to watch, I will buy anyone a beverage of their choice in the chat Not for you on YouTube. Um, if you can guess who this skier is, it's the same skier, both doing downhill, same left turn. Not same left turn, same course, but you get what I'm saying. It's a competitive World Cup course where they're making a left-hand turn at about 70 miles an hour. Anyone? It's not Lindsey Vonn. Hannah, you owe me a drink. I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to show it to you, and we're going to watch the difference between them. I'm actually going to start with. Hey, I was threatened to come to Seven Springs. I grew up in Cleveland, so for sure I know my way around the streets at Seven Springs. So um, uh, we're going to watch just this one turn, and then we're going to watch a second turn. Oops, boogers. Let me go back. There we go. And I have it anchored. It's Michaela Schifrin. YouTube. And I'm just going to step through this. Here you're going to see both ski, there's directing pressure to the outside ski, really clear angles, active recovery, and early initiation of the new turn. By the way, is there a speedometer on this? There isn't. I'm guessing, I'm guessing a probably good 65, 70 miles an hour. Let's watch the other one. Yeah, let's watch that again. It's painful. This Okay, as it comes off the roller, right? And there, look, this is an incredibly high, complex move that's happening in incredibly small windows with a world-class athlete. That all being said, this fundamental, along with other ones as well, we can talk a lot about them later, but I'm trying to focus on this one, rears its ugly head really clearly. As you set up here, right? Inclined in the downhill edge, but there's zero pressure on that left ski to create it. She bounces back to it. And again, this isn't the zoom in isn't great, but she's back on the left ski. And you'll see the right ski comes off because she's having to deal with the rebound from one ski to another because she's completely inclined. And there's zero ability and precision with no angles to actually create that precision and absorption to direct pressure to the outside ski. Now there's a setup to it too, and came in off hot, right? But this is when I talk about radness needing to be balanced with recovery. This is what I mean at the highest level. And it's not just, and I'll bring this down a level away from World Cup. And for those who may be exam and assessment focused, I will tell you, these are unnamed selectors. I did not try out for the team, so I got to hang out with some selectors. They were scoping terrain before tryouts. And it was at Big Sky, and unnamed selectors said, this is just things they said to me. It's like, I'm excited for selection to be at Big Sky versus Breck. People can pull it back together at Breck. Recovery. But at Big Sky, they're not going to be so lucky. A snowboarder, I was like, oh, what are you looking for? I was like, everyone says inspired riding. What is that? What the frick does that mean? There's no performance guide for At least I didn't see one when I tried out. There's no performance guide for team tryouts. I was like, what do you define as inspired riding? And this selector said something. I want to see you ride your equipment to the edge of its performance envelope. Turn it one notch past and see if you can recover. Now, this doesn't perform. I mean, again, I say this stuff because, and usually this looks at, I mean, it's edging back to the Michaela Schifrin thing that it really becomes super, super evident. And so I just want to offer this as a thought for you. If it happens at team selection at a much lower level for anyone who's assessing, chances are recovery is going to be part of that assessment. And then I'm going to bring it down to an even lower level that's far more practical and useful for our guests that come through us every single day. It has relevance to not just their performance, but their safety. I care a lot about recovery. I care a lot about dictating and prescribing edge angles, body movements that use the combination of angulation and inclination that's commensurate with their experience so that they come back safe. So my point is, if you saw, I mean, all this relates to this fundamental for at the highest level with the highest consequences from, and this isn't my primary discipline, and I'm not the biggest World Cup follower, but my understanding is Michaela Schifrin is still not back 100% from that MCL tear at Cortina. It is incredibly paramount all the way down to understanding recovery with what we do with our beginners when we ask them to pressure that downhill edge, right? Like when we ask them to do, like, these are incredibly important things that you dictate these questions based on their ability, the conditions, etc. So, and then, you know, assessments in the middle. Recovery, recovery, recovery. Recovery is paramount. This fundamental has recovery all over it. Radness, combinations, sensations, recovery. I'll just do a quick pause. I know there's, is everyone tracking with me for this in a second? If you have some questions, I'm happy to take them in the chat and do, you know, and then I will try and redirect anything to the material so that we can make a more complete video for our friends out at home. But are we tracking so far? Awesome. One of the things I get a lot, New Yorker, Seinfeld, like, I mean, we got edge angles, we got inclination, we got tilt, but we have pressure outside skill. I mean, what's the deal? That's a terrible Seinfeld impression. But, you know, I do get, thank you, Ken. I got to laugh. But in all seriousness, I get this question a lot. And you know what? It's a darn good one. What is the difference between pressure to the outside ski and edging? And I would say it is subtle, but I do think it's very important. And I'm going to show you a picture. And then the other thing I'll say too, and this is not a presentation on this fundamental. I do think all the fundamentals generally line up between ski and snowboard. I think this one is the one, believe it or not, is the most different, because for us, when we talk about lateral pressure, us being snowboarders, we're talking about pressure across, controlling the center mass across the width. And that isn't talked about at all in the Alpine fundamental. It's really just talking about pressure ski to ski. And there's a nerdy understanding why around that, but I'm going to defer to that for whoever's covering that that fundamental, and then I will heckle them in the comments later. But this is my point. This is Ben Potts, skier, national team member. Is he directing pressure to the outside ski? I see his right hip sitting down on this as he's going down this rainbow, this rainbow rail. It's actually, I believe this is a box. This was during the photo shoot after we made the team, where it's more compressed and slightly more pressure. Is there any edge angle being created? There better not be. There better not be. Otherwise, he's going to have a bad time. So this idea that you can manage pressure to the outside ski, flat equals free. One of the best answers I ever heard, and when I was taking my Cert 3, my level 3 exam, we were doing board slides, and they were just asking. The examiner asked was one candidate, "What performance?" It was board performance. What did we use? He just said tilt, absence of. Examiner goes, "Do you want to say any more?" He goes, "Nope." 6, aced it. So this idea that you know you can manage pressure and can be in situations where you need to manage pressure to the outside ski without creating edge angle um, is important, or not in the traditional way of using that ski in that Ballou banked, in that Jonathan Ballou short leg, long leg, big bank turn. Uh, I want to give. I'm going to play this clip too. The snowboard team when I was on when I was on. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Isn't flat edging managing zero edge? Absolutely. Edge absence of is a high level skill. It is a very high level skill. One we use here on the East Coast all the time, all the time. um, I'm going to click on this link, and I'd love to play this clip for you from the snowboard team, just to understand that. And I thought Chris Rogers did a really great job of explaining this aspect of it. And I'm curious how some of the alpiners on here will think to it, because I think there's a lot of parallels here. Can can you hear this? Is that audio coming through when I play or no? No. Is that audio coming through or no?
No.
Oh, boogers. You know what? Then I'm just going to leave the link. I'm going to leave the link on it. And really, it just talks about this idea that, to summarize his point, that we're talking about managing pressure. You can be banked here, but as we bring the board flat, right? We're thinking about bringing the center mass. So say I'm in this turn. I'm bringing my center, and if I'm on it, for me, a right side toe side turn, I'm letting the board come through and I'm bringing my center mass to the other side. These are independent aspects, but they do have a related outcome. All this mumbo jumbo, I try and center line it this way. I know there's no audio, Davis. I apologize. That's why I'm just summarizing that view of it, and people can click on. I'll put the links in the show in the show description. That pressure does a great job of setting up great combinations to create this outcome, and a lot of other things. So and it's a much more versatile. There are uses of this fundamental. You just saw one in freestyle as well. So that's just I want to make that very subtle nuance and give my plain speak answer as I try and talk with, as you may talk with people in the locker room, trainers in a trainers meeting, or even, I don't know if I would be really hammering the fundamentals with the guest, but the concepts of it, that our pressure sets up sensations to make the ski and board do cool things on the edge or off it. That's how I think about it. You can do it without it, but it's a useful tool that generates cool outcomes. Since I know the audio isn't working, and I'm not going to do a tech support here. Anyone, I don't know if people know who Deb Armstrong is. Um, uh, she happened to win a gold medal in Sarajevo. And then afterward, because that wasn't enough, she tried out for a national team, and is one of the most distinguished members in our amongst all of us, and incredibly humble. She has this great, yeah, exactly. She has some great videos about skiing ice. And actually, uh, I'm kind of glad the audio isn't working. And, and she's going through her description of how to ski ice. And you don't even have to hear what is she doing? Angulating, right? angulating with and creating and both creating the edge angle and releasing it as she's going through skiing. And this is an effective use of that fundamental. And she's describing here that she's not going to make big angles from the hip and the spine. She wants to keep her center of mass moving, but then she goes in this part about talking about she's always moving though. It's always managed, always dynamic, but it's happening from a lower part of the joints to create those angles where she has what? Back to this aspect of it. Inclination for power, angulation for precision. Ice is precise. I saw a lot of, well, we have one from Seven Springs here, and it's something that it's something that is incredibly useful as you think through stuff. And that's why I wanted to leave you. This fundamental is not just for carving. Flat is a skill. Flat unlocks a lot of high level movements. Alpiners, you guys talk about like keeping your zipper in the fall line to create the right amount of rotation, right? If the ski never comes flat, that move is completely useless. If they can never find a flat base, they're just going to have tired obliques. So this idea of this fundamental as you go around is not just carving. It's not just carving. I have a side rant and about this particular fundamental. And this was said by a trainer at my mountain, an alpine trainer. He said, we had a very heated debate in a trainers meeting. And this person, I won't even identify the gender I teach zero edging in my beginner lessons, and I train zero edging to any instructor that walks through my new hire. And boy, did we have a time of it. So this is, I don't know where this, and this particular trainer had some support for this. So I guess I'll say this. This is false. It is a physical impossibility. Turning is created by displacing snow. The only way to displace snow is to put the side cut into this surface and create a change in direction. For gosh sake, I didn't know I was wearing this. I have a venture capital firm. My venture capital firm is called Side Cut Ventures. The idea is that this is patently false. If you hear people say this, that is just patently false. Please help end this falsehood. Now, I do understand their point, I think, which is as a corrective measure, most beginners, because they go, and this is where I understand this radness principle from the poster. Our students come with this. This is already baked into here in every ski picture that they've seen. So when they say, I teach zero edging, I take it as a compensatory corrective coaching cue to try and get the right amount of tilt and edge angle effective for a beginner, because usually we have to ramp that down. Cool. Thank you for attending my TED Talk on this particular point. Radness, recovery, combination sensations. Radness, recovery, combination sensations. When I think about this fundamental, these are the 4 words I go through. In the adaptive world, I think we have some challenges with this, especially if you look at it through the lens of sensations and combinations. And this is where it speaks to, I think, a lot of the strengths of the people on the live call. Sensation-wise, well, at least last I checked, equipment such as shocks, prosthetics, and outriggers don't have any nerve endings, at least not yet. Maybe one day. Maybe I'll invest in a company one day that does that. Actually, I've tried to look at a couple. Secondly, disability, from a sensation standpoint, disabilities sometimes limit input to create sensations, like, again, VI, cognitive. auditory. There's a whole bunch of things. And then lastly, particularly if we work a lot in the autism or other behavioral disability or intellectual disability worlds, like some sensations create triggers. And I don't know if you've ever had a lesson go sideways when you've triggered an athlete. It tends to not be the best learning environment. It's never happened to me. I've only read about it. But this is a problem with sensations. It is often one of the triggering parts of it. So think about how we modulate it. The other part is combinations. It's complex. I get, at least for me, like that Euro carve, I feel like I make like I told you about 30 different decisions in the course of a second. And it is like a cognitive overload. And sometimes when it doesn't go well, um, it's because I didn't compute fast enough or I misunderstood a piece of information. Obviously, from a combination standpoint, um, if we have fewer joints and limbs for some reason, then obviously the number of combinations we create decreases. And the other aspect of terms of combinations, not just number, but activity and passivity, bike shocks, other mechanical joints, some is only working passive, right? Uh, it's hard to create, changes actively. Um, you can only kind of get rebound out of a shock, and so you get you put into it. You get what you put out and into it, and also too, once you make a setting, you change your high speed compression, or it's kind of that until you turn the shock upside down and make some changes. So this notion of changes are challenging, and at least make it, but it doesn't change the fundamental principle around this fundamental. Sensations combinations are the key to managing incline, tilt, edging, and angles. So, I mean, so this is just another video I'm just going to show. Like, this is a 25-year-old male, um, plain speak parlance, tunnel vision, and contrast glare. For those who know, this particular athlete, RP, we were skiing at Mount Snow on a super icy day, even for East Coast. So we'll just watch this video really quickly and then tell me what you think in the chat, or I'll go through like how is he using the edging fundamental and why? How maybe he better use it? And how does disability, maybe what's your theories on this disability, how it comes into play? So we'll wait for this to load. And if you want to cue, the athlete is the gentleman in the green jacket in the middle. I shot this, so it's terrible, but it from a cinematography standpoint. So I'll go back and if people want to put things in, that's great. Otherwise, I'll just roll through it. And this was super icy. What I see is that at the bottom of the turn, he'll use right there, sort of a small amount of incline off the outside leg at the bottom of the turn to create braking. Um, and I'll go back. And the edging doesn't occur till there, and it's late. We're far past the apex. So again, a couple thoughts in my head, just very simply. Yes, edging is at the end of the turn. And if you account for, I think that's completely right. If you account for the disability, I think it makes a lot of sense. Scary, can't see anything. It is icy. Comes to a stop almost every turn because it feels safe. Because it feels safe. And after you figure that out, it doesn't change any. I mean, it just becomes like any other ski lesson once you think this through, right? So things I think about would be how do I create some more angles so I can create more precision with a flatter ski And once I have the ski flat, let's say here, I don't have to use edging. Using the edging fundamental to create a flat ski actually opens the door for me to add rotary movements, or exactly what Deb was showing in the earlier video. It actually opens that up and creating safe space. I mean, what I would think about doing with this is bring this back to green terrain and finding an area where they can find a flat ski again and get confidence that they can use that edging fundamental, bring it back to flat, and open the door to something else, like a rotary move. Just all things about understanding this idea of sensations. It's challenging when you're sighted. I have no idea what it feels like to be, tunneled out and glared out. Uh, but that makes a lot of sense, and that's how that represents in the movement pattern. Again, the other thing too, and I'll just put, these are just a couple ideas through it. Like I think adaptive combinations, this is what outriggers are for. And for those, for the live call, there's a lot of people here who work this and are used to these things. I should probably turn off these things called outriggers. But the way I think about it is well, gosh darn it, if nature took away our legs and we need them, well, we got these, and they are function just like legs. They can rotate just like your femur, and they can flex and extend. And again, for those who are watching who've never seen one of these, I mean, I'll bring this in. I'll show some video. That's how I'd love you to think about it. And to prove a point, this first video is I went to Interski and we ran a clinic called Using Adaptive Equipment to Create Able-Bodied Breakthroughs. This is my friend Tess from and she never used outriggers. She's on the Swedish Alpine team. And I gave zero instruction. I just said, whatever your legs, just ski this hill, whatever your legs do it with the outrigger. That was all the setup I gave her. And you can see that right femur rotated with the right rigger, the left femur rotated with the left rigger, and you're seeing the same movements come through. She was blown away. She was blown away. She's like, that is the coolest thing ever. And I don't know if you've guys watched this guy. His name is Vasu Sojitra. He's a 3-tracker. Again, this is a much higher level view of, but you can use those outriggers to create. And I want to show how he's using the outriggers almost in conjunction with other in the timing to create angles. You're seeing the same effective use of incline, power through the beginning of the turn. Of this shot is a little compromised. Let me see if I can back it up. And as he finishes the bottom of the turn, you're seeing angles anticipating the new turn. A release while he's completely stacked and the ski is flat. Angles again setting, and you're going to see that little compression. He must have hit a little divot there through to create the shaping of it. There is no such thing as adaptive skiing. There is no such thing as adaptive snowboarding. It's just snowboarding and skiing. My ultimate view of showing the challenge of creating edge angles for in the adaptive world is monoskiing. I don't know if anyone's been there, but obviously you are. This is a piece of equipment we typically use, I would say traditionally with people with spinal cord injuries, but a lot of other populations. But there's a lot of sensations that are missing and a lot of parts that are missing for normal combinations that we create while we're stand-up alpining, skiing, or stand-up snowboarding. So, and I'm happy to take some comments here, but monoskiing tells so much. So have a look at these are two able-bodied instructors learning how to monoski for the first time at Spring Rally here in the East Coast. And I'll pull this one up while it's loading. And we'll flip the camera too. We'll check in on our friend. I mean, I don't think you have to be an examiner. Like, there's no sensation of understanding where the center of mass is in relation to the ski. And again, there's this general view that we want to, and it's a very common feeling that we just want to incline and move that hip inside the turn. And this is what happens 95% of the time, the first time an able-bodied person gets into a ski, at least my experience, maybe not 95, once you put them on pitch. In the second skier's example, you're going to see no incline, or very little incline. And when she uses it, she actually uses a little angle here to create that little hip check, this little move to manage the precision. Now, isn't necessarily the cleanest move, but managing the edge angle through a combination of incline and angulation was far more effective in the second skier. And the outrigger use starts to match some of this as well and becomes an aid where she's using that left rigger to set up that turn to create, you even see the right here, the line in the snow, which is her friction device being dragged to create to widen that base of support to create the scaffolding. And in the first example, none of it until it's too late. Until it's too late. It appears right at the apex, and once there's awareness that it's too far gone. There is no such thing as adaptive skiing. It's just skiing. The challenge on this particular fundamental is that the combinations are new and the sensations are deader. Like they're not used to, they don't quite work as in the same way. The input is not the same as flesh and bone moving underneath you. And that's what's creating some of the changes or inaccuracies in the use of this particular fundamental. Here's an example, and this presents at a higher level too. I mean, this is, oops, this one is me. Oh no, where'd it go? I'll pull this up. You can have a look at you can have a look at Krill here, and watch his angles and etc. while I pull this up. And you see really clean movements from incline as we set power, angles as we set up the new turn. Incline for power, and then that angle there creates that balance for him to create a clean shape and entry, recovery and entry into the new turn. Here, I pulled this up. This was, let's see if I pull this over. This was me. I blew up on Instagram. I entered at Big Snow. I entered our, there's a little rec league. I podiumed because I was the only sit skier that went in. But you're going to see, my use of just self-assessment on this. I'm completely, I use very little angles, and when I do, I'll do it on my right rigger, and you'll see it. And left, I use none. It is completely inclined on my left. And I have some ability to create angles on my right. and you're going to see that, like, for instance, I missed that. I came so far past the brush on that last left turn. Um, hey, Kevin, you're pretty close. T7, T8 on the guess of Jeff's injury. So I guess my point is that this idea presents, even when we do movement assessment in the adaptive world, uh, all the principles are the same. The ability to create angles and inclination angles to create different changes in edging on the board. I just encourage you to think through, like, what are some of the limitations that compromise or modulate the understanding that we have as primarily, at least the people I see on this call, as abled, or even if you are disabled of a different aspect, your sensations are going to be completely different, and your ability to use different combinations are going to be different. So this is, this is the thought about why I think this is such a really cool fundamental to change the way that you think about, well, one, coaching this in the adaptive world, but I actually think it has ramifications beyond sensations and combinations. So that's it. That's the talk. You're like, we've been through talking about a lot about edging before, but the idea I really wanted to hit in the fundamentals around combining and how we do the combination, and then sensations are the guide of thinking about how we create those combinations, um, and recovery is just a great test to see if that's accurate or not in your own skiing, in your students, and that recovery has huge ramifications as well from a safety perspective. And the last thing, just adapt to be rad. So continue to think through this. I compromise nothing. I want every athlete that I touch, able-bodied, stand down, sit down, stand up, single leg, double leg, whatever. I don't care. I want them to feel that radness, because that is why they probably came to be here. And I think the more that we can think of creative ways to give them that, I think the more successful I'll be. So that's it. So go get rad this winter. Uh, this was an effective penguin slide when sometimes those Eurocarves don't work out well. I'm Michael W. Maude, Gmail. You can find me on Michael W. Maude on all socials. So that is the talk we have on edging. So thank you for attending. Thank you for watching on YouTube. For the people here, I'll turn the recording off, and then we can have a little chit chat. All right. Thanks, everyone.